Hello, this is Yogeshwar 7000 again, and I'm back on my series on stories from the Puranas. And today we'll be talking about a very interesting story about the birth of Karna, the great warrior who was an important character in the great epic Mahabharata. Mahabharata, as you know, was compiled by the great sage Vedavyasa along with the 18 Mahapuranas. And this story is coming directly from the Puranas. This is not fiction, so I will request you to have firm faith and belief in it. And in our earlier videos, we did discuss as to how King Shantanu married Satyavati, and two sons were born to her and they died in due course of time. And Chitrangada and Vichitravirya were the name of the sons. And if you want to refer to the earlier videos, please refer to those and it'll give you detailed description of how they were born and how they died. And then to continue the family, Vedavyasa, the sage who was Satyavati's first son from her marriage, before her marriage to King Shantanu, she requested Vedavyasa, her son, to have union with the wives of Vichitravirya, and two sons were born out of Ambika and Ambalika. Ambika's son was blind and his name was Dhritarashtra because Ambika closed her eyes during their union, and Ambalika, her son, was very pale because she turned pale at the sight of Vedavyasa. So these were the two sons which were born to these two princesses who were earlier married to the late king Vichitravirya. And then the third son was born between the union of Vyasa and the maid servant of Ambalika, and who was called Vidur. And he was a very great scholar of that time because the maid servant neither did close her eyes or did turn pale during the union with Vedavyasa. So a normal son was born. However, since he was born out of a maid, he could not have been made a king. Dhritarashtra, the eldest son, who was born from Ambika, could not be made the king because he was blind. So Pandu was, although he was younger, he was made the king. Now, in due course of time, Dhritarashtra got two wives by the name of Gandhari and Sauvali. And King Pandu, who was actually the younger brother of Dhritarashtra, younger stepbrother of Dhritarashtra, was made the king, and he had two wives too. The first wife was Kunti, who was the daughter of Surasena, and the other wife was Madri. The younger one was Madri, who was the daughter of Madra king, the king of Madra. That's why she was called Madri. Gandhari, the elder one, the elder wife of Dhritarashtra, gave birth to 100 sons. And his second wife, Sauvali, gave birth to one son, and his name was Yuyutsu. And Gandhari's, out of 100 sons, the eldest one was Duryodhana. And Kunti, of course, at that point did give birth to 5 sons, which were later known as the Pandavas. So the sons of Pandu were the 5 Pandavas. And this was the basis, this was the foundation basically of the great epic Mahabharata, where there was a war between the 5 Pandavas, the 5 brothers Pandavas, who were the sons of King Pandu. And the war was between the Pandavas and the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. And we're not going to discuss into that story today. We'll be discussing about how the great warrior Karna was born. So Karna actually was the first son of Kunti. Once again, Kunti was married to King Pandava, and Kunti was the daughter of Surasena. So how did Kunti have her first son Karna? And this is what the story says from the Puranas, that while Surasena's daughter Kunti was a young girl, there was a king named Kunti Bhoja. He asked Kunti that she may become his daughter. So Surasena actually gave his daughter to Kunti Bhoja, King Kunti Bhoja. And the King Kunti Bhoja brought up this little girl Kunti until she turned into a young girl, a young woman. And once she was a young woman, King Kunti Bhoja asked Kunti that she should serve the Agni of Agnihotra. So that's Agnihotras are people who are devotees of Agni or fire. So Agni is a Sanskrit name for fire. And on one occasion, there was a sage by the name of Durvasa. He came and visited the Agnihotra. And during the Agnihotra's ceremony, which was a religious ritual which Durvasa Muni or the sage Durvasa was attending, Kunti, who was the adopted daughter of King Kunti Bhoja, served him during that 4 months period. This was a 4-month period of that ceremony or the ritual which Durvasa Muni or sage Durvasa was attending at the Agnihotra where Kunti was serving. And Kunti did serve Durvasa Muni or sage Durvasa during that 4-month period as well. And during this 4-month period, the sage Durvasa became extremely pleased with the services of Kunti, and he gave a very auspicious mantra to Kunti, and the power of the mantra was such that Kunti, by the power of that mantra, could call upon any god or deva. So when the Muni or Durvasa Muni or sage Durvasa, you may call him whichever way, he left, Kunti wanted to try that mantra, and she was alone in the house, so she wanted to test the accuracy of the mantra. And she thought, well, which devata or which deva or which god should I call upon? And as soon as she was thinking, she saw in the skies god Surya, because Hindus consider sun as a god as well. So she saw god Surya who was rising up in the sky. So she thought, well, let me try this mantra and see whether if I call on Surya god, whether he appears or not. So as soon as she used the mantra, the sun god assumed a human form, an excellent, handsome human form, and he came down from the heavens, from the sky, and appeared before Kunti in the same room where she tried this mantra. And seeing the god sun, Kunti was very surprised, and she was a little nervous. But because of the good looks of the god Surya or sun, she became extremely attracted towards him. And then looking at Kunti, the god sun also was very attracted towards Kunti. And Surya Deva or god sun wanted to have union with Kunti, and Kunti was a little nervous. She said, well, I'm a virgin, I'm not married yet, how can I have union with you? And to which the sun god or Surya, he said, do not worry. You will still remain a virgin. And with our union, there will be a son which will be born to you, who will be exactly like me, with all my divine qualities, with all my powers. Yet you will still remain a virgin, and nobody is going to know. To which Kunti agreed. They had the union, and Kunti became pregnant with God's son, or God Surya's child, and she started to live in a house with secrecy so that nobody would know. And in due course of time, a very, very handsome, beautiful son, like the second son, just like the sun god of the Surya, Devata or Deva, was born. And the surprising thing was, he was born with 2 earrings in his ears and a kavacha, which is an armor. So here she got a baby who was looking exactly, or appeared exactly with the divine qualities of sun, as the god sun had promised. And then she saw that he had 2 naturally, while he was born, he had 2 earrings and also a kavacha, or a natural armor. And then she immediately understood that, yes, he is the second Surya, the second son, who was born as promised by the sun god. However, out of shame, she had to let him go, because she couldn't have said that as a young unmarried girl she got a child. So what she did was, she put Surya's son, who was named as Karna, and he set him afloat in the running water, and she had to let him go. And of course she was very, very sad to have done that, but there was nothing else she could have done. And then meanwhile, there was a casket floating in Ganges, which she had flowed Karna. And Karna was accidentally seen by a lady by the name of Radha, and she got him through that casket which was flowing in the Ganges. And then she raised the son as Karna. So this was the story of how Karna was born. And of course, as we know, that Kunti was a virgin unmarried girl at that time. She had to let Karna go, but this Karna was adopted by this lady called Radha, who was longing for a child, and he nourished the child with great care. And in the meanwhile, of course, King Pandu then married Kunti in a Swayamvara, and Swayamvara is, of course, where a girl chooses the husband amongst a number of other would-be bridegrooms. And then, of course, King of Madra also gave his daughter to Pandu. So Pandu had two wives. And how the other 5 sons of Pandu was born, we'll discuss in the forthcoming video. But in the meanwhile, I hope you enjoyed this little story of the birth of Karna, how he was born through the power of that mantra which Durvasa Muni, or sage Durvasa, had given to Kunti, and how she had to let him go because she was an unmarried girl at that time, and how the other lady called Radha, who was actually a charioteer's wife, got him through that casket flowing in the Ganges, the casket in which Kunti had put Karna and set him afloat in Ganges, and how she nourished him and raised him. and we'll be discussing about the birth of other 5 sons of Pandu in our next video. In the meanwhile, I will recommend subscribe to my channel, check out my website. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will see you with the continuation of stories from the Puranas very soon. Goodbye.